My parents said I was a useless failure and threw me out in the rain. My father pointed at the door and yelled, "Go live in the streets." They didn't know I made $15 million a year. I didn't argue. I didn't even flinch. I just smiled, picked up my jacket, and walked out while their words echoed like thunder behind me. 3 weeks later, I owned everything they once bragged about. But that night, when the rain hit my face, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like something inside me had finally snapped. My name is James Michael Carter. What I'm about to tell you isn't about revenge. It's about what happens when silence becomes the loudest answer. It was 9:15 on a wet March night in Scarsdale. Rain beat against the tall windows like a metronome, counting down the end of something I didn't yet name. The Carter living room glowed gold, too warm, too curated to feel like home. My father paced by the fireplace, still wearing his office shirt and authority like armor. In his hand was a bank envelope from First White Plains Bank, creased where his thumb had pressed too hard. My mother stood near the gas fire, hands folded, perfume thick with jasmine. My sister Lauren sat on the couch in a black dress, white wine in hand, wearing that same cold smirk she'd mastered since law school. 30 years old, my father said, voice heavy as the storm outside. And you're still wasting your life on that internet nonsense. He tossed the envelope onto the table like evidence. You could have been something real. I met his eyes and asked evenly, "What do you want me to do?" My mother's tone was sweet and surgical. "Grow up, James. Go out there and live like an adult. When you've learned what responsibility means, maybe you can come back." He didn't hesitate. "Go live in the streets." The words landed sharper than thunder. Lauren didn't look up. "There's still an opening for an intern at my firm," she said, her voice sugar-coated disdain. "If you can handle coffee runs." I looked around the room, the framed family photo where I was half cropped out, the fake fire flickering against the glass, the smell of polished oak and judgment. My mother's phone lit up with a group chat. "Ladies of Westchester Philanthropy, Sunday dinner still on?" The weekly performance of perfection. My father muttered, "Riverbend Homes can't fail unless someone drags it down," unaware he'd just mentioned the company that would soon define everything. Lauren swirled her wine. "The Hudson roads are terrible this time of year," she said, a throwaway line that somehow felt like foreshadowing. I stayed quiet, letting their words orbit and crash. 4 years, I'd wanted them to recognize what I'd built. That night, I realized I didn't need recognition. I needed air. When I reached for my coat, the light caught the rain on my sleeve. A reflection in the window showed 2 versions of me, the one they saw and the one they never would. My hand brushed the envelope on the table. The corner lifted just enough to reveal a line, "Custodial Savings. UTMA James M. Carter." My father didn't notice. My mother turned away. Lauren raised her glass, maybe in mock farewell. "I'll live exactly the way you told me to," I said, voice calm. Then I opened the door. Rain swept in, cold and cleansing. The wind drowned their silence as the door closed behind me. That was the night they threw me out, and the night I finally walked into my own story. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the automated blinds of my Tribeca penthouse, turning the river below into liquid silver. The city hadn't changed, but I had. I stood barefoot by the window, coffee in hand, the skyline reflected in the dark roast. On my walnut desk, 3 monitors blinked with numbers that never lied. E-commerce division year-to-date revenue, up 41%. SaaS analytics platform monthly recurring revenue, $850,000. My seed investment in a medtech firm had just received a Series B offer. $15 million a year, give or take. My parents' definition of success had never included mine. I scrolled through a muted group chat of old college friends trading jokes about layoffs. None of them knew the company I'd quietly built now spanned 3 continents. I liked it that way. Silence, I'd learned, had compound interest. A text appeared from my cousin Jacob. "You okay after last night?" "I'm fine," I replied. And I was, maybe more than ever. At 6:45, I sat at my desk and opened a document titled Asset Lockdown Checklist. My assistant had sent it years ago. I'd ignored it until now. I checked every box one by one. Secured investment accounts. Changed sign-in credentials. Initiated multi-factor verification. Then a final note caught my eye. Custodial accounts audit pending. The phrase sparked recognition. UTMA. My name on that bank envelope. I drafted an email to my legal advisor. Need confirmation of ownership and closure status of all custodial accounts. Priority. Minutes later, a reply came back. One UTMA account remains active under guardian Susan Carter. Paperwork incomplete. I leaned back. The taste of coffee suddenly turned metallic. My mother still held legal control over an account tied to my name. A relic from when I was 17, left open, never transferred. A perfect loophole for someone to borrow. The irony stung. They'd called me a failure while sitting on money that technically belonged to me. I didn't get angry. I wrote another note instead. Terminate pending authority. Convert to private trust. Require biometric authorization. Outside, the sun cleared the fog from the Hudson, revealing the sharp lines of cranes and rooftops. Across the river lay New Jersey, where I had a meeting next week with a real estate investment group reviewing distressed assets. I hadn't known until last night that the name Riverbend Homes would show up on their list. On another tab, an email draft waited. Refeature story, The Underestimated Visionaries. A business magazine editor had reached out weeks ago. I hadn't replied. Now I smiled. Timing was everything. My phone buzzed. A notification from First White Plains Bank. Unusual activity detected. I stared at the screen for a moment, heartbeat steady. Rain was no longer hitting glass, but I could still hear it somewhere in the memory of that night. Whatever they had started, they had no idea I was about to finish it. By noon the next Thursday, I sat in the sterile chill of First White Plains Bank. The place smelled of new paper and stale coffee. A heater hummed too high, drying my throat while I waited for the branch manager. Outside, the street glistened from last night's rain, sunlight slicing through puddles like pieces of glass. When she returned, she placed the printouts in front of me, cautious, professional. 2 withdrawals, she said. $7,000 each, 5 days apart. Same account, UTMA, under your name. Mrs. Susan Carter presented your authorization for emergency family needs. Her tone carried apology. I didn't blame her. Did she provide an ID? I asked. Yes, and she signed here. Said it was urgent. I studied the slip, my mother's handwriting looping and elegant next to a forged version of my name. The account I'd left dormant since college, meant to close years ago, had become her safety net. I thanked the teller, requested a copy of the camera footage and KYC records, and left without raising my voice. In the parking lot, sunlight hit the windshields in shards. My phone buzzed. A story from Lauren's social feed filled the screen, her smiling beside a brand-new white Range Rover Sport. Caption, Family gets you there. A message followed from Jacob. Heard something weird last night. Your sister said her SUV was a gift from the family. You good? Yeah, I typed back. Thanks for telling me. I drove home. The sound of tires slicing through wet pavement mixed with the silence I carried. By the time I reached Tribeca, a text from my mother waited. Susan, I used some of that money. It was sitting there doing nothing. Your sister needed a car for court travel. You're doing so well, James. Family comes first. I stared at the message, the words glowing soft on the screen like a sermon of self-justification. They had stolen from me, but in their heads, it was love, an act of stewardship. I typed, I saw the withdrawals. And left it at that. No outrage, no lecture, just acknowledgement. Then I called my lawyer. He answered on the second ring, calm as always. If the account was never legally closed, Susan still had limited guardian rights, he explained. But she crossed a line. There's a paper trail, and restitution is possible. I didn't want restitution. I wanted silence with leverage. That evening, Jacob called again. Your mom's been telling people at church you're living out of your car. Said Lauren's been helping you get back on your feet. I felt something inside me unclench, not anger, clarity. They weren't defending their lies anymore. They were repackaging them for sympathy. Later that night, Lauren texted. I'm sorry, Mom got carried away, but if you say anything publicly, it'll make her look bad, and that'll put me in a tough spot. Of course it would. Lauren's world was made of image, not truth. I opened a new folder on my computer and titled it Damage and Leverage. Inside, I created 3 sections. A. Bank documentation, camera stills, transaction slips, forged signatures. B. Screenshots of a Range Rover story with timestamps and comments. C. Witness list, Jacob, the bank teller, Lauren's stylist who bragged about the gift. Then I sent a message to my financial assistant. Full audit. Every account, trust, LLC, and authorization connected to my name. 7 days. Before shutting down for the night, I searched for the business registry of Riverbend Homes Development, LLC. The page loaded slowly under bad Wi-Fi, but what I saw confirmed my suspicion. The company was bleeding. My father's signature appeared under a personal guarantee. I leaned back in my chair, the city glowing below like circuitry. They'd always said money defined worth. Fine, then. I'd let money speak, but not the way they expected. Outside, the last light faded off the river. I glanced at my phone. The calendar pinged. Seaboard Real Estate Partners Portfolio Distress Briefing, Jersey City. Friday, 10 a.m. I exhaled slowly. I don't need them to give back a few thousand, I said to the empty room. I just need to make sure they never have anything left to weaponize. 2 weeks later, a gray Tuesday settled over Manhattan like a film of dust. I sat in my penthouse conference nook, facing the river through glass walls while spreadsheets lit the table like an X-ray of everything I didn't want to see. My lawyer and financial analyst flanked me, one quiet, one typing fast. Your father personally guaranteed an $800,000 loan from Riverbend Homes Development, the analyst began. Delays, unpaid contractors, and a near-empty reserve. The bank's preparing to call the debt within the quarter. I said nothing. He went on. Your mother's been shifting funds from her retirement accounts into the business. Temporary deposits pulled back within days, likely to fake liquidity. And your sister? She's in deeper trouble than you thought. $90,000 in revolving credit debt, plus she leveraged her midtown condo for a consolidation loan. I closed the laptop halfway. So they're each lying to each other. He nodded. And all of them to themselves. The room fell quiet except for the hum of the air system. Outside, the river ran like steel. I knew what came next. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. I was going to build a map. First layer, defense. I finished locking every account, redirecting residuals, removing family names from any remaining authorizations. Second layer, opportunity. If Riverbend Homes went under, I wanted the rights to buy what they'd lose. I reached out to Seaboard Real Estate Partners in Jersey City. Logan Price, an old acquaintance, specialized in distressed assets. My message was simple. Looking to review your current portfolio. Interested in Hudson Valley properties. Hours later, he replied, you might like a development project, Riverbend Homes. High-risk ownership, Robert Carter. I read the email twice, a bitter smile catching in my throat. They'd built their legacy on appearances. I'd built mine on patience. As the day darkened, my lawyer forwarded an attachment, a scanned financial disclosure he'd retrieved. One line stood out, cash advance by family, signed Susan Carter, co-signed James M. Carter. My name, my mother's handwriting beside it. They had used me again, not as a son, but as collateral. I didn't raise my voice. I just made notes. Susan had taken my funds because she feared the loan default would expose my father's guarantee. Lauren had maxed her firm's corporate card on designer wardrobes she called client image expenses. My father had no idea any of it was happening. Yet all of them were orbiting the same sinkhole. 4 years, I'd mistaken their judgment for superiority. Now I saw it for what it was, desperation disguised as pride. I stood by the window, watching tugboats crawl across the Hudson, lights reflecting like fractured gold. My reflection looked back at me, calm, surgical. If they thought I was just a wallet they could reach into, I'd become the entire bank. And I'd decide when the vault opened. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Meeting confirmed. Seaboard Partners, Friday, 10 a.m. I pressed my thumb against the screen, closing the notification. If they need a lesson, I murmured, I'll teach it in the only language they ever respected, assets. The city lights blinked below like a heartbeat, steady and patient, waiting for morning. Friday morning came gray and slick with rain. From the 39th floor of Seaboard Partners in Jersey City, the skyline of Manhattan looked like a dream half hidden in mist. Logan Price extended a hand across the table, his cufflinks flashing faintly in the light. "James Carter," he said with the kind of charm that belonged to a man who'd learned to read balance sheets faster than people. "Let's talk numbers." On the wall behind him, a digital screen displayed the portfolio of distressed assets currently under review. At the bottom of the list was a familiar name, Riverbend Homes Town Homes. High risk. Negative equity. Seeking new investors. I didn't blink. "Tell me about that one." He turned his screen toward me. Small-scale residential development in Hudson Valley. Family-run. Current guarantor, Robert Carter. Loan outstanding, $800,000. Unless someone steps in within 90 days, the bank will take possession. The air conditioning hummed like a heartbeat. I took a sip of water. "If you need a bridge investor," I said, "Carter Ventures can supply the capital." Quietly. Logan smiled. "We like partners who know when to strike." We went through the terms, valuation, acquisition routes, legal structure. I signed the non-disclosure agreement, fingers steady, heart silent. When he slid the file across the table, I saw the familiar signature. My father's at the bottom of the loan document. "His company's been trying to stay afloat for months," Logan said. "But to be honest, it's a lost cause unless someone buys the debt outright." I closed the folder. "Consider me interested." Leaving the meeting, I stepped into the hallway and called my lawyer. "Prepare to acquire the asset the moment the loan defaults," I said. "I want all documents ready for execution." By afternoon, I was in Soho House with the editor from Forbes Insight, a woman named Amira whose words carried both weight and intuition. The upcoming feature, Self-Made Visionaries, was in its final stage. She asked about timing. I smiled faintly. "Release it in November," I said. "That's when the people who underestimated me will finally start paying attention." That evening, as I walked back to my car, drizzle streaked across the pavement like threads of mercury. My phone buzzed. Jacob again. "Lauren is talking about asking you for help with Dad's company. Says things are getting bad." Seconds later, Lauren's name appeared on the screen. "Hey," she said, forcing casualness. "I know it's awkward, but Dad could use a little financial push. Just something temporary." I could hear clinking glasses in the background and her voice smooth as a lawyer's pitch. "You always said family matters most." I replied, "I did. I'm just choosing when it does." When I hung up, the email from Logan was waiting. "Networking dinner next week. Metropolitan Real Estate Circle, Manhattan. I'd like you to come. Your father's registered to attend." I stared at the message, the city's glow flickering across the windshield. For the first time, they would walk into a room where the man they once called a failure would be the one deciding their future. I signed the letter of intent that night. The ink bled slightly on the page, dark and final. I didn't feel triumph, just precision. I looked at the signed document and whispered, "I'm not saving them. I'm buying back the dream they wasted using their own currency." Outside, thunder rolled far across the Hudson like applause for something no one yet understood. The first Monday of November arrived crisp and gold, the kind of morning New York dresses up for. My inbox pinged before sunrise. "Congratulations, the issue is live." I opened the link. On the screen, the magazine cover glowed with my photo, dark suit, skyline behind me. Headline bold and clean, "From Doubt to Dominance, James Michael Carter, the Self-Made Visionary." I drank my coffee in silence. No posts, no announcement, just quiet satisfaction. Across the river in Scarsdale, the Carter breakfast table was still set in silver and linen. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she flipped the glossy pages. My father squinted at the headline. Lauren froze her spoon halfway to her mouth. "He was told he'd never make it by the people closest to him," the article read. Susan put the magazine down slowly. My father muttered, He's making us look like fools. Lauren just whispered, "He's not the same anymore." By noon, my phone was flashing with missed calls. 12 from my mother, 4 from Lauren. "We're so proud of you. We had no idea things were so big for you. Let's talk soon." I didn't respond. At 3 p.m., my lawyer messaged, "Riverbend Homes loan officially in default. Seaboard activating acquisition clause." Minutes later, an email from Logan, "Deal closed. Welcome aboard, partner." I signed the transfer with a steady hand. The deed now bore my name. I was the controlling stakeholder in the project my father had sworn could never fail. By evening, the internet had already connected the dots. A business blogger posted, "Self-made millionaire buys his family's failing company." The headline spread faster than truth. My mother called first. "James," she said, voice brittle, "people are saying you took your father's company, that you stole from us." I answered evenly, "No, I purchased it. Legally, the same way you withdrew from my account. Legally questionable but traceable." She gasped, "How could you?" I said back, "We both made choices. Mine just happened to come with paperwork." Hours later, my father appeared in a local interview denying everything. "We're not connected to that company anymore," he said. But the loan file with his signature was already public record. Lauren's email came last. "Don't do this. You'll destroy the family." I typed a single line in return. "This family destroyed itself long before I arrived." That night, I stood in Seaboard's conference room as the sun slid down behind the skyline. The river caught the light, turning gold then gray. I didn't feel vindicated, just empty, calm, certain. For years, they'd written me out of their picture. I hadn't erased it. I'd simply redrawn the frame. My phone buzzed again. A new message. Dinner invitation from Robert Carter. I looked out at the city, the lights flickering on one by one. So I murmured, "They finally want to sit at my table." Outside, Manhattan glowed like a confession under glass. Inside, I smiled, quiet, measured. It was almost time for them to learn what a fair dinner truly looked like. The invitation had gone out 3 days earlier, sent from my assistant to keep it impersonal. Dinner at Gramercy Tavern, Friday 7:30 p.m. It was the same restaurant where years ago they'd celebrated Lauren's birthday while I sat at the side table near the waiter station. This time, the reservation was under my name. I arrived 10 minutes early. The table glowed under soft amber light, polished wine glasses reflecting the chandeliers above. Outside, Manhattan pulsed with November chill, the kind that made the city hum just before the holidays. At 7:29, they entered together. My father in his familiar navy blazer, my mother wrapped in pearls that caught the candlelight, and Lauren with her flawless posture, pretending none of this was awkward. "James," my father said, shaking my hand firmly. "Good to see you, son." My mother leaned in for a quick hug that smelled faintly of jasmine and nerves. "The press exaggerated things," she murmured. "We're proud of you, really." Lauren smiled. "I'm glad you finally found some stability." "I'm better than stable," I said, and gestured for them to sit. For the first few minutes, conversation fluttered around small talk, the weather, new restaurants, charity events. No one mentioned Riverbend Homes, though the name lingered in the air like perfume. I let them speak first. When the main course arrived, I set down my fork and said quietly, "I asked you here because there's an investment I'd like to discuss." That got their attention. My father's eyes sharpened. "You're interested in Riverbend Homes, aren't you? We've been trying to keep it alive." "I know," I said, "and that's why I thought it was time we talked." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a brown leather folder, sliding it across the table. The Seaboard Partners logo gleamed on the cover. He frowned, flipped it open, and froze. "The project is now under Carter Ventures," I said evenly. "Which means it belongs to me." He looked up, confused. "You can't be serious." "It's all there. The bank called the loan, Seaboard acquired it, and I invested as controlling shareholder. It's clean, lawful, and final." My mother's face turned pale. "How could you take something that belongs to your own family?" I met her eyes. "I didn't take it. I bought it, just like you withdrew from my account without asking. Lauren's tone rose. So this is revenge because of a car? No, I said calmly. Because of everything that car represented. From my folder, I drew 2 documents, the withdrawal slips from the UTMA account and the signed transfer agreement for Riverbend Homes. I placed them side by side. They withdrew my money once, I said. I withdrew my patience once. Both were perfectly legal. My father's expression tightened. Your mother did it for the family. You know that. So you knew, I said softly, and stayed silent to protect your name. Lauren lowered her eyes. Dad. He was trying to fix things. Lauren, I interrupted. You used my name on your condo loan as collateral. The bank called me last month. Her lips parted. No sound came out. I opened the final envelope, a notarized document stamped with today's date. This is a release of liability, I said. It removes my name from every joint account, every family guarantee, every line of shared credit. From this point forward, you stand on your own. My mother reached across the table. James, please. This isn't necessary. It is, I replied. Because I won't let my name be borrowed again. Then with quiet precision, I added, and for the record, the workers at Riverbend Homes are staying. Only the management team changes. Effective today, you're off payroll. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. My father's jaw worked. My mother blinked back tears. Lauren's wine glass trembled in her hand. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Everything that had been stolen from me, dignity, trust, belonging, was now laid bare on a linen tablecloth under candlelight. I'm not here to punish anyone, I said finally. I'm here to end this. When the check arrived, I paid with my Carter Ventures Platinum card. The server thanked me by name. Mr. Carter. And for a moment, that title sounded exactly right. As I stood, I said quietly, years ago, you sat here while I ate by the service door. Thank you for that lesson. Tonight, I chose my own table. I walked out into the cold night, leaving them in the fading glow of the candles. Silence followed me out the door, and somehow it spoke louder than any apology could. 6 months later, spring sunlight spilled over Hudson Valley like forgiveness. The new townhomes at Riverbend Homes gleamed clean and modern, families unloading moving boxes, children running between mailboxes and sidewalks still smelling of fresh paint. The sign out front read, Riverbend Homes, rebuilt by Carter Ventures. I walked along the row of houses, nodding to the project manager signing the final approval papers for completion. The breeze carried the scent of cut grass and cedar. My phone buzzed. Jacob, they sold the Scarsdale place. Your parents are moving to Florida. Lauren left her firm. Good for them, I said quietly. I hope they find peace. After we hung up, I looked again at the sign. The word rebuilt caught the light. It wasn't just the project that had been reconstructed. It was me. News outlets started to cover the turnaround, from bankruptcy to breakthrough. Local developer revives Hudson Valley project. No one mentioned the Carter family. They only mentioned James Michael Carter, founder of Carter Ventures. One quote was reprinted in several papers. No one is useless if they know when to stay silent and when to act. A few weeks later, I received an email from my mother. Just a line, you've changed. I typed back, no, I just stopped playing the old role. Another message came from a law office in White Plains. The last UTMA account had been transferred fully back to my ownership, along with a note of apology. I didn't announce it or hold it over anyone. Instead, I used the funds to create a small scholarship named after my father, a quiet way to close the loop without bitterness. When a reporter later asked if I regretted embarrassing my family, I smiled. I didn't humiliate anyone, I said. I just turned the mirror around. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my Tribeca penthouse, watching the lights dance along the Hudson. Below, the city was alive, restless, unending. I raised a glass of wine and thought of that rainy night when I'd been told to live in the streets. The irony still tasted sharp but clean. I whispered to myself, I did live in the streets. And then I bought them. Some people search for a home. Others build their own skyline. The camera of memory would pan if life were a film, From the bright facades of Riverbend homes to the quiet river at dusk, where the water held reflections of everything that had been lost and found. And in that stillness, one truth remained. Silence, once weaponized, had become the language of freedom. They said, "Go live in the streets." I did. But what they never understood is that the streets don't always mean the gutter. Sometimes they mean the world outside their narrow version of safety. The place where you start from nothing and learn what it costs to stand up again. When I walked out that night, rain running down my sleeves, I thought I'd lost everything that defined me. A family name, a house full of polished furniture, the illusion that love meant approval. What I didn't know then was that leaving wasn't losing. It was the beginning of building. 4 months after that night, silence was my companion. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped chasing permission. I worked, not because I wanted to prove them wrong, but because I needed to see who I could be without their voices echoing behind me. That silence, the one they mistook for weakness, became the soil where my strength grew. It's strange how time rearranges pain. At first, every memory was a bruise I couldn't touch. Birthday dinners where I wasn't invited, laughter that stopped when I entered the room, the quiet humiliation of being treated as an afterthought. But somewhere between long work nights and small wins, I realized something powerful. I didn't need an apology to heal. I needed clarity. And clarity only comes when you stop shouting for validation and start listening to yourself. Years ago, they built their home on appearances, Sunday brunches, charity events, photos for the ladies of Westchester newsletter. They built for the eyes of others. I built in silence, for the truth of my own survival. Their house was full of noise. Mine began with the quiet hum of an empty apartment and a laptop. That quiet became a symphony, the rhythm of work, the sound of emails sending, the subtle heartbeat of a dream taking shape. I built Carter Ventures not out of ambition, but out of necessity. Because when someone tells you you're worthless, you either spend your life trying to convince them otherwise, or you prove to yourself that they were never your judges to begin with. So when people ask me what success feels like, owning the project that once symbolized my family's pride, I tell them it's not revenge. It's reclamation. It's looking at something that once made you small and realizing it no longer has the power to shrink you. When I walked through the finished streets of Riverbend homes, children laughing, doors slamming, people living, I didn't see the ruins of my family's downfall. I saw proof that things can be rebuilt better. Not because they were destroyed, but because they were meant to evolve. Riverbend Homes wasn't a revenge trophy. It was a message written in brick and light. You can be cast out and still build something whole. People often romanticize forgiveness as if it's a single grand act, a hug, a phone call, a headline. But forgiveness is quieter than that. It's when you stop replaying the same wound in your head. It's when you can say, "I wish them peace," and mean it, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the calm that follows. Do I forgive them? In my own way, yes. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back in. It means no longer needing to. It means understanding that love without respect isn't love. It's leverage. And once you see that, you can finally walk away without leaving any part of yourself behind. Sometimes I wonder what my father sees when he looks at the skyline now. Does he recognize one of the towers that Carter Ventures helped finance? Does he know that his so-called failure of a son turned the lesson of being thrown out into a blueprint for something greater? Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. But that's the beauty of growth. You don't need the audience anymore. If you've ever been told you're nothing, that your dreams are unrealistic, that you're not enough, listen carefully. Those words don't define you. They expose the limits of the person speaking them. You are not too late, too small, too quiet, or too strange. You are becoming. And sometimes becoming means leaving people behind who can't see your evolution without feeling threatened by it. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I stared at my ceiling wondering if solitude was victory or punishment. But with every morning, with every deal closed, every paycheck earned through my own hands, I realized something profound. Solitude was the rent I paid for freedom. If you're walking your own rainy road tonight, don't rush to find shelter. Let it wash you clean. Because one day you'll look back and understand that the storm wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to baptize you into the person you were always meant to be. And when that day comes, don't chase revenge. Build something instead. Let your success be the silence that speaks for you. Let it echo in the rooms where you were once ignored. Let it replace every insult with proof. I started this journey being told I'd never make it. I ended here, standing on the balcony above the city, glass in hand, knowing I didn't just make it. I built it. They said, "Go live in the streets." So I did. And then I bought the street. Now it's yours to walk.